Why do we think? Let's start with the question. Why do we think? Why should we think at all? Yeah. Yeah. Why should we think? What is special about us as human beings?
We have the power to think and analyze.
Okay. And what is the purpose?
To answer the stories which are coming into our mind.
So we'll start with these two basic questions. That we as human beings probably are the luckiest creatures on earth that we can think. And we can think rationally and also think with a purpose. Purpose may be good, purpose may be bad. That's a different question. But that's the next question. So that's why anything we say, for example, I make a statement. Supreme Court has broadened Article 21 of the Constitution of India to the extent that almost every fundamental right is read into Article 21. I say Article 21 is enough in Constitution of India. We do not need other fundamental rights. So if we look at this presentation, right, and we start with this question, how critically you can think about this kind of a device. When I made the statement, how critically we look at that. So is it possible? Now you tell me anything, I will read into Article 21. Anything on earth, you tell me. Yes, sir. Anything on earth, you tell me, I'll read into Article 21. It's such a, because now we have two categories of fundamental rights. One kind of, कामयाब हो गए? पहले क्यों नहीं करते? क्या चेक किया था? दूसरी बात है. So, over the years you find, for a long time, say about, I think till Manka Gandhi, till 29-30 years, Supreme Court has been functioning a very, very positivistic framework. Go by the rule book kind of thing. And they did very little innovation in law, right? And they look at the language of the law and analyze it very, very critically within that framework. Right? And that was the reason that you find the unfortunate judgments like Indian Judgment Board and those judgments came. You know? Where you find during emergency a lot of people went to jails and the Supreme Court said, sorry, doors are closed because, why? Why the doors are closed? Because no fundamental right is violated because the rule of justice has been followed. What is the rule of justice in India? What is the rule of justice in India? What is in England? What is the rule of justice in England? Rule of law. What is in America? Due process of law. Simple way. ये तो पढ़ाते हैं. And what is in India? We did not use rule of law. We did not use due process of law. We prefer to use something else. We had televisions with Frankfurter. Rao went to America and then I said, no, don't use due process of law. It will create problem for you. It has created problem for us because we could not reform a lot of things during the New Deal legislation because of the due process laws. So better use some other phrase. Which phrase we use? Procedure has to be very law. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court, which was operating in a very positivistic framework and the time before Manka Gandhi was there, during emergency, thousands and thousands of people, absolutely innocent students, politicians, all kinds of people. Police will knock at your door and say, "Chalo bhai." jail में जाता है, those kind of things. And the Supreme Court finally said, no, the procedure has been followed. Right? That was the situation. But unfortunately for us, Malika Gandhi's case, they said, no, it can't be any procedure. It has to be just, fair, reasonable. It has to be due process of law. Due process of law has to be followed. Right? So after that, the entire gamut of the procedure has to be by law changed. Right? So that's our protection. So we were at that point, we were saying that though we have fundamental rights lined up, there are two categories of fundamental rights. One category of fundamental rights are, those are enumerated. Right? Which are the fundamental rights enumerated? Where are the fundamental rights enumerated? Article 14 to 32 and then 226 also. 32. Right? But there are the whole range, assembly lineage of fundamental rights which are not enumerated in the Constitution, but they are still fundamental rights. Which are those? Which are those? The whole range of fundamental rights which are not enumerated in the. By the way, you also take it here. Yes. Please, come. Rohit, better. Please take care. But the whole range of fundamental rights which are not enumerated. Anybody? Give me that list. Why do we think? No?
Something that comes within the ambit of Article 21.
Very good. You see, even Article 21 is the article. कितना कुछ लिया है? If you open that article, you will give us that small constitution with us. Have you given that small constitution to them? Do you want a small constitution? We'll give it. वो भी लाओ सिद्धार्थ में यार दिले काम करते हैं। कौन सा बढ़िया? हाँ, बाद में जाएंगे पहले तो पढ़ लेंगे कुछ। So if you open Article 21, you find Article 21 is such a two-line article, and my God, what has come into article? Huh? Fair trial, legal aid, and environment, and child labor, and children's rights, and women's rights, and everything we are bringing into Article 21. It is so broad. And those articles, those fundamental rights were nowhere in the Constitution of India. कहीं नहीं थे. No. So entire gamut of human rights, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, somewhere stepped into Article 21, and that happened because of the interpretation, very wide interpretation given by the Supreme Court of India. Luckily, after the opening of the locus standi in 32 and 226. We changed it because of the public interest. Thanks to that bench in 1918, Justice Krishna, Justice all those great judges. They did one just this yeah. So this is the idea of having this presentation with you. Oh my God, wonderful. This is a world famous statue. This statue is about a solitary thinker. He said man is just uniquely reflective and self-aware animal, and that is something fundamentally to the human condition. Right? We have this at Nalsar. I created this. Oh, anybody from Nalsar? Yeah. I created this at Nalsar. The story of this statue is initially it was at the main gate, near the main gate, not towards the administrative block, but the middle one where you stairs, and then go to the. But then I shifted it from there and shifted to that beautiful fountain near the fountain. I thought it would be a better place to have it. So this is what I used to do there. I never used to teach. I was more of an architect. So this is, I think, a wonderful. The answers are, we think, because we are human beings and all human beings think. Everyone thinks it is our nature to do so. The purpose is for faculty. Why we should think? For faculty, it provides a shared concept of critical legal thinking, right we are sharing now, right, Article 21. For students, critical legal studies is supplementary to textbooks, what you read in textbooks, or on course, it gives you platform to think more, beyond books, beyond textbooks, beyond classroom, right? It is important. Faculty can use it to design instruction, assignments and tests in any subject. So faculty, it is a wonderful tool if they resort to this. Students can also improve it to improve their learning in any content area, right? So if you look at things critically, that's the idea. In all law schools and other good law schools, we say you have to do a project every semester in each and every paper. The idea is that they think critically, complete their project, and also give their critical comments. So that's the idea. So the critical thinking are generic skills. These are kind of skills which every student, teacher need to improve, and it can be applied to any subject or across, not only to law, are clear, and the purpose is very clear. For example, critical legal thinkers are clear as to the purpose in hand. They know it, what we want to achieve through critical thinking, and the question set issue. They question information. They don't believe anything. They question everything, whether the information is correct, whether the conclusions are correct, whether the point of view is correct. Unless you develop that kind of thinking, the purpose will not be achieved. They strive to be clear, but then whatever you say, you should be very clear. Sometimes when you make a statement, you can be very confusing. पता नहीं लगता क्या कह रहे हो. So you see sometimes people ask questions, और आपको पता नहीं चलता. You don't know what question is being asked. You ask क्या पूछ रहे हैं? Could you understand? So you should be very clear, accurate, and precise, and relevant. Relevant to the subject which we are talking about. And they seek to think beneath the surface to be logical. They should be also logical and fair. Apply their skills to their reading and writing as well as to their speaking and listening. It applies everywhere. Not that it applies only to writing, it can apply to your writing, it can apply to your listening, it can apply to your speaking. They apply them in history, science, you can apply math, philosophy, social sciences, law. It can be applied to any discipline. It's very important. And as I said earlier also, everyone thinks that it is our nature to do so, and yet the quality of our life and that of we produce, make or build depends precisely on the quality of our thought. हम कैसा सोचते हैं, positive सोचते हैं, negative सोचते हैं, और we are too critical about everything. Even being too critical is also not very good. You also be critical of the right things. आप तो criticize करना ही करना है, no? That kind of thing is also not good. I give you one example. I remember I just started my career at Trinity, and we were at a conference. Very senior professors were there from Delhi University and other universities. Those days were the days of heads. Those heads used to never change. Those they were permanent heads, like these heads. They used to stay for till they die or something happens to them. So there in one of the discourse, two people there, they never liked each other, right? And one argument was done by a professor who was very senior, and another professor from Delhi wanted to demolish that professor. So he said, and then chair said, okay, argue. He said, I appreciate everything what Professor so and so has said, but I think she doesn't understand ABC of constitutional law. You make a statement of this kind for a very senior professor of law, which is very critical, conveys absolutely nothing. It absolutely conveys nothing. This is not being critical. This is not being critical. We have to be very careful. So the definition is critical legal thinking is a process by which the thinker improves the quality of his or her thinking by skillfully taking charge of structures inherent in thinking and imposing intellectual standards upon them. I will give a copy of this presentation to everybody, So don't worry on that. The result would be, when you develop like this, a well-cultivated critical thinker raises vital questions and problems, formulating them clearly and precisely, gathers and assesses relevant information using abstract ideas to interpret effectively, comes to well-reasoned conclusion and solutions, thinks open-mindedly within alternative systems of thought, recognizing and assessing as need be their assumptions, implications and practical consequences. If you look at many judgments of the Supreme Court, look at many judgments of the Supreme Court where they have enunciated new principles and they overrule a judgment, then you find all these things. It's not that judges of the Supreme Court, they do a lot of hard work. I was with Justice Kane one day, sitting with Justice Kane, he's a minister. He was telling me that many times the judgment we have to deliver is so important that we pass many sleepless nights. We are not able to make up our mind what is the right kind of judgment we should give in such a serious matter. Because it will have far-reaching consequences and every word would have an implication, every word. So people think we have a wonderful time and wonderful job and good houses and big houses in Delhi, but the life is very difficult, very difficult if you are a serious judge. So that's what that means. And then one has to learn to communicate effectively with others and finding solution to complex problems. Critical legal thinking, in short, is self-directed, right? Self-disciplined, self-monitored, self-corrective thinking. आपके अपनी है, is your own, right? It requires rigorous standards of excellence. Ultimately, what is the aim? You want to go towards excellence in whatever you do. And mindful command of their use, it entails effective communication and problem-solving abilities and a commitment to overcome our native egocentrism and sociocentrism. You know, बताऊंगा आपको क्या है. You can read this. It's not required. Now, the checklist of reasoning is, all reasoning has a purpose. Right? When you write some article, you have to write some research article, you have to prepare a research report, you have to do your thinking, your PhD thesis. And is any thesis purposeless? Is any thesis purposeless? Purpose है ना उसका भाई? क्या purpose है? PhD achieve करना नहीं है. Sorry. The purpose is not to achieve PhD. Purpose is to produce a well-balanced critical study on a particular given topic. And it takes time to state your purpose clearly. That's why you get into methodology and hypothesis and all kinds of things. And you distinguish your purpose from related purposes. You know? The study can have so many purposes. For example, death penalty. Death penalty, you know, if you look into this, there can be many purposes, but we confine to only one. The main was we could look into human rights, it could look into prison reforms, it could look into prosecution, failure of the prosecution system, but we confine to the plight of the death victims within the framework of the constitution, right, criminal law. And the other dimension, like their mental health, we are doing again. So that should be a different study. So one study, you have so many studies. So initially you have to confine it to a purpose at hand. If you get into so many things, then there is a problem again. All reasoning is an attempt to figure out something, some questions you have in mind, and then you find a solution or a problem to those. And take time to clearly and precisely state the question at issue. Express the question in several ways to clarify its meaning. And you also decide that when I'm writing this research article, what issues I'm going to take and how do I find the answers finally. Reservation, for example. Then you get into all those questions of reservation, and then you finally want to say what you want to say with your reasons. And then break the question into sub-questions. Sometimes you find ants and you make also sub-ants. Identify the question has one right answer, or it may have many right answers. Not necessarily that it would have one. All reasoning is based on assumptions. Assumption क्या है? Whenever you do any research or you do any PhD or whatever, you start with assumptions. Prejudice क्या है?
Hypothesis.
धारणा है आपके दिमाग में. You already have a dharana in your mind. बनी होती है ना, that inbuilt assumption in your mind. Every Buddhist would have a different assumption. And you must clearly identify your assumption and determine whether they are justifiable. Some assumptions you have in your mind is not justifiable. Sometimes you make assumptions about somebody, वो तो अच्छा नहीं है. कभी नहीं मिले आप उससे. Never interacted with somebody. आपने एक धारणा बना ली कि वो तो अच्छा आदमी नहीं है. क्यों नहीं है? मैंने सुना है अच्छा आदमी नहीं है. आपने क्यों सुना है? मैंने सुना है. So, we are human beings, you know. Consider how your assumptions are shaping your point of view. And whenever you make assumptions in your mind, आपका जो point of view है उसको shape करते. You try to justify your assumptions, right? So that is very important. What kind of assumptions you make? And all reasoning is done from a point of view. Point of view is very important. नहीं? For example, you may comment on any government. This government is good or this government is not good. आपका एक point of view है. You are stuck to that. If somebody won't agree with your point of view, you are prepared to fight. So that is another thing. So identify your point of view, seek other points of view, and identify their strengths and weaknesses. ये नहीं है कि only your point of view is very important. Also look into the point of view of others. नहीं तो क्या होगा? If you stuck to your point of view, you will never grow. Academically, you never grow. You are stuck. There is a need for every academic to get unstuck. No, ताला खोलने की जरूरत है दिमाग का. नहीं. Many of us are stuck in academics, so we have to open our minds to what? To the other points of view. There can be one point of view, there can be 10 points of view, there can be 100 points of view. And we have to be very honest with everybody. Yeah, you made a very good point. The other can also make a very good point. Your point can also be good. But if you say what I think is good, and what you say is rubbish, probably that is not honestly very academic. All reasoning is then when you say something, you must have data to prove that. You must have information. When I said that the Supreme Court has widened the scope of Article 21 to the extent that we don't need other fundamental rights, I have data. Data means I can give you 100 cases. I can give you 100 cases, and I can give you cases which could be read into Article 14 or 16 or somewhere else. But those articles are also read into, say for example, freedom of religion. No, freedom of religion can also be read into Article 21. Because it is also the question of personal liberty. If I am not able to carry on my conviction or my religious beliefs, that my personal liberty is valid, I can read even that in Article 21. So those kind of things. And then search for information that oppose your position as well as information that supports it. दोनों तरह की देखिए. There will be information which will oppose your way of thinking. Right? When you do PhD, you find certain material or article which do not support you. And there are articles which support you. In American Supreme Court, it is a duty bound, it is by law, that the opposite counsel has to cite to the Supreme Court all cases which are not in his or her favor. And if by default or by anything, anybody would hide those cases which were against that particular proposition, there can be chance of misconduct against the person. They are duty bound to give all cases which not only favor you but also which are against you. Sami judgment देनी होती है. So that's how you come to know. And then all reasoning is expressed through shaped by concepts and ideas. After that you start formatting your concepts and ideas, and then identify key concepts and then alternative concepts and then how you use them. And then the reasoning leads somewhere to implications and consequences. Now, when you frame those ideas and concepts, then you also start working on what are the implications and consequences of this concept or idea. Say, for example, you say, reservation was initially meant for only for 10 years or 20 years, and it has gone beyond 10 years, 20 years, and it's still continuing, whether it should be abolished. Once you make this statement, it has implications and consequences. No, it will have implications, it will have consequences. So all reasoning contains inferences or interpretations by which we draw conclusions and give meaning to data. Then if we make any kind of statement, then whatever information we have collected, we have data and we analyze it and then put our study, whether it has helped us or it has not helped us. Then these are very important questions for any scholar, any researcher to ask when you carry out a study or a research or a project, whatever. First is that the purpose. You must very clearly know what am I trying to accomplish. मेरा ये PhD करने का meaning क्या है? What is the idea of doing this kind of thing? What is the purpose of this kind of thing? What is my central aim? No. And then information. What information I am using to come to that conclusion? What experience I had to support this claim? What information do I need to settle this question? मुझे इसके लिए क्या information चाहिए? Do I need articles? Do I need data? Will it be empirical study? Or will I look into the cases decided by the High Court, Supreme Court? Should I look into various reports or the reports of the Commission or committees or whatever it's there. And then inference is, how did I reach this conclusion? And conclusions, is there any other way to interpret the information? Now, when you come to a conclusion, then you have also find out, is there any other conclusion possible? Is there only one conclusion or there are a number of conclusions come out from this study? And that is the idea of, what is the idea here? Could I explain this idea in concept? And you come out with a concept when you do this kind of study. And then assumptions. What kind of assumptions you have in mind, with what assumptions you have started, and which led you to that conclusion. And then it will have implications, consequences. You form your own point of view, and then you also raise questions. In your thesis, you raise questions. That when you write some article, you give some abstract, and this article I'm going to raise this question and finally answer this question. Normally, that's how the article would start and end. And the problem of, I said, I'll tell you what is egocentric thinking. This way you have to be very careful. It's true because I believe it. I need not give any proof to you. आपका क्या problem है? Because why you say like this? Because I believe it. Ranveer Singh कह रहे हैं, he is vice chancellor of Punjab University. So that is innate egocentrism, which is not good. It is true because sometimes I say, or sometimes we say a group. You see so many religious discourse. This you can apply if you have the example in a religious discourse. Everybody believes that my religion is the best, or what I think about the religion is the best. No, right? It is true because we believe it. We are four friends. We are all friends. We are the same view. We believe it. So you have to agree to us. You are in a minority. It is true because I want to believe it. What is your problem? You may not believe it. कहते ना वैसे आप अभी करें नहीं करें मेरी उदाहरण के लिए. So these are all examples of egocentrism. This is bad for academics. ये जितने भी ऐसे बहुत लोग हैं हमारे. We have a great population of these people. Lot of people. No, they don't want to convince you. They want to be convinced. मैंने कह दिया. What is your problem? हम सब कह रहे हैं. ये देखो ये भी कह रहे हैं. Madam Shashikala कह रही है. What is your problem? Huh? So we have to be careful. So it is true because I have always believed in it. बस बचपन से believe कर रहा है. How can I change it now? It is true because it is in my selfish interest to do so. मैं कुछ और कहूँगा तो मैं आपको सपोर्ट तो करूँगा लेकिन मैं बिलीव नहीं करूँगा क्योंकि मुझे ये मेरा सेल्फ इंटरेस्ट इससे सर्व नहीं होता. I'm with you or I'm with you not. नहीं होता ना ऐसे. इशू आपकी बात तो ठीक है, तो मैं आपके साथ हूँ. So those kind of, this is all ego states. And the problems are, since human beings are naturally prone to assess thinking in keeping with the above criteria, it is not surprising that we as species have not developed a significant interest in establishing and teaching legitimate intellectual standards. That's very important. It is not surprising that our thinking often flawed. We are truly the self-deceived animal. है ना? हम अपने आप को धोखा देके जीते हैं. That gives us sadistic pleasure. If we hurt somebody academically, हम सोचते हैं हमने बहुत बड़ा तीर मार दिया तो. Without understanding that what I said is rubbish, it has no meaning at all. And then, what are the universal intellectual standards? I think I'll give you a list. Clarity, accuracy. I'm not going to explain all this. You can probably develop it and leave the presentation with you. Precision, relevance, depth, breadth, logic, significance, fairness. And when you write some article, normally you have to fill in these blanks. The main purpose of this article is this. The key question addressed by the author are these. The most important information in this article is this. The main inferences, conclusions are this. The key concepts developed in this article are these, or this. The assumptions raised in this article are this. And if you take this line of reasoning seriously, the implications are what are consequences are likely to follow if people take this author's line of reasoning seriously. I say to you, all the reservation policy should be scrapped. If you work on this, if you take this line of reasoning seriously, the implications are very serious. So if you say something, you have to be very careful what are the implications of what are you saying in your article. It can create problem for you. And because it may fall beyond the line of reasonableness and whatever. If you fail to take this line of reasoning seriously, the implications are what consequences are likely to follow if I say this kind of thing. So some people will end up in problem when they say something or they write something like this. We have seen this so many times. So the main points of view presented in this article are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. And the questions come again. You can leave this again. This is intellectual integrity. Intellectual should be, I guess, if you are real intellectual, you are very humble. Arrogance do not make you a good intellectual. If you talk to Justice Professor Bakshi or Justice Krishna Iyer, I remember when he came to Hyderabad, he used to stay with me sometime. I asked him to, are you staying in a hotel? No, I'm staying with you. In that old dingy building at Balkapura, he stayed with me. I said, why are you staying with me? No, I need your help because you have to put every 4 or 5 hours medicine in my eyes. But a judge of that stature, absolutely simple. But you love staying with people like him. So then, fair-mindedness, intellectual perseverance, confidence in reading, intellectual courage, intellectual empathy, intellectual autonomy. These are the intellectual virtues actually. And if you develop these virtues, you are good academic. ये भी है बहुत अच्छी चीज़ है. Essential intellectual traits: intellectual humility, intellectual arrogance. कौन सी चाहिए? Academic should be very humility. Intellectual courage. What is intellectual courage? The courage to say what you think is right. Sometimes we don't say things which are right. Sure? Psychopathic rhetoric. Something which will please Dr. Music or Shashi Lagu. Don't say, you don't have the courage to say right thing. Even if it's the interest of the institution. Huh? You can say it definitely, not as a complaint, but you can always say it. Otherwise, I have to wait now. intellectual empathy or intellectual close-mindedness, intellectual autonomy. Everybody should enjoy intellectual autonomy. I have the right to say what I think, but that should be fair and just. And intellectual integrity. होनी चाहिए, hypocrisy नहीं होनी चाहिए. Hypocrisy, I told you, you don't know ABC of Constitution of India. That is intellectual activity. कई institutions हैं इंडिया में. Those who in discourse, in intellectual discourse, conferences, will always make statement like this. That what Krishna is saying is all rubbish. You don't understand what he's saying. And you think by saying this you become a great scholar. आपने तो कुछ नहीं कहा. और Bhagavati's judgments are very confusing. You just make a statement and try to prove that you as if you are bigger than Justice Bhagavad, and in fact you said nothing. So you will find a lot of people like this. Intellectual perseverance. नहीं लगे रहते हैं आप. If you keep working, you grow. You get it. I told you about PhD. PhD is a qualification which may not help you, but it can certainly harm you if you don't do it. Yeah? Somebody said that. But if you carry on, you complete it. But if you only worry about it and the books and the material is lying in a corner, it automatically तो लिखी नहीं जाएगी. Ultimately you have to do it. That's what my teacher also told me. That you collect all your books, come to Kuchitra, stay in my house, do it within 9 months. And I did it. Otherwise नहीं होती. So this is how it's done. And then fair-mindedness and intellectual unfairness. And for any good academic, fair-mindedness is very, very, very. You have to sometimes pay a price, but academics should be able to pay the price, no problem. And then these are all questions, the same kind of things. There's a template for problems. So I can leave some of the things which you can look at later on. These are the checklists for assessment. These are not very important for me. Stages of critical legal thinking. You start with unreflective thinker. When we are not aware of the problem, हमें ज़्यादा idea नहीं है क्या है, then we start challenging the problems and our thinking. Am I thinking right, or should I think differently? And then I start thinking about something, and then I became a practical thinker, right? And then advanced thinker. I also look at the theories critically. No, whether whatever Austin said about the command of the political superior, is he right? Would that mean if the political superior is not in the every nook and corner of the India live in 80,000 villages, how the sovereign will work? Command can't be present everywhere. So if your command doesn't travel everywhere in the country, how do you find out that the law would be obeyed? How do you find that? So we can give examples for that. And then advanced thinker and then master thinker. Master thinker will be, you develop habits, very good habits of thinking. You like Professor Bakshi. I would call Professor Bakshi a master thinker. If you have heard Professor Bakshi or you have read his books or articles, I think you should read his books, especially books of Professor Bakshi. You find he is really, if India, there is any master thinker in academics, in law, it is Professor Bakshi. He is superb. I was asked by the NHRC to review his book on human rights, which was a very difficult task for me. I certainly wrote the review, and I in the end wrote that it's a wonderful book about how human rights should be applicable, available to poor people in this country. But the only critical comment I could make was, I wish for whom this book is written, they will understand this book. Because a ordinary scholar like us, it's very difficult to understand either Krishna or Professor Bakshi. Two people who are in judiciary, who are in academics, nobody at par. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much.